I think you are going to see commercial real estate pain finally be recognized. I think we've gone through the extend and pretend. I think there's going to be a validation that rates aren't going to bail anybody out. Cap rates are going to go up because cost of capital, and you're going to just have more foreclosures, more forced sellers, more pain. So we have talked about what recessions, maybe a soft landing. We've talked about expansions, but I don't think we've really talked about, hey, what happens? What happens if the Fed dramatically pulls off this soft landing, no landing, crash up scenario where we don't have a recession, where they pull off a 1994 like economy? Again, to be clear, it's not what I'm calling, but after retail sales surprise to the upside, after the weekly unemployment claims surprise to the downside, I do think it's a very interesting conversation. And I think there are five things to understand if we truly are going to have no landing. So the first thing I think we all need to acknowledge is that interest rates, the cost of capital, will be higher than many people expect. If the Fed dramatically pulls off this no landing or soft landing, we are going to have higher rates for cost of capital across the board. And that is regardless of how often or how many times the Fed cuts. If you don't know already, the Fed does not control the long end. They control the overnight rate. The Fed, at best, has some influence on the 2-year, but most things in real estate are, if you're in commercial, are off the 5-year, and of course, residential off the 10-year. So the first thing I want to acknowledge, if we have this no landing, we are going to have a dramatically higher 10-year, and we are going to have dramatically higher interest rates than most people expect. It was only 3 or 4 weeks ago when many people were calling for the low fives, and some got brave and called for the high fours with 30-year mortgages. I, luckily, was never one of them. I thought we might be able to get down to 5.8% from 6.1 or 6.2, so not dramatically lower. I am sitting here acknowledging that if, again, not calling, but if we have this no landing scenario, I suspect mortgage rates are about 6.25, best case, next year. So again, if we are going to have this dramatic no landing, I think you need to be prepared for higher interest rates. I think you need to always run the numbers where it cash flows today. Please, please, please do not do skinny deals where you're dating the rate kind of nonsense. That's not this environment. If we truly have a no landing scenario, we are going to have dramatically higher cost of capitals, likely for years to come. Next, I think something that will be unfortunate if we have this no landing scenario and we are going through an economy that is purging some bad decisions, some bad companies, some overly leveraged companies, we are going to see the average 10-year on unemployment go up. One of the things that we saw over the pandemic the last 2 or 3 years is if you got unemployed, it was relatively easy to get a similar job. I don't remember the statistic, but I think it was under 4 weeks to get another job. I think something we're going to see in a no landing scenario is the folks that are employed are doing quite well. And unfortunately, the ones that get laid off have a harder and harder time. So again, this is the time to get close to revenue, something we've talked about historically. Get close to revenue. If you can impact and grow revenue, you become instrumental to a company. So again, I think we are going to see average days on weekly unemployment or on unemployment probably double, and they could triple, right? We could go from sub 4 weeks to 12 weeks. I think the reason that will be is the economy won't be booming. It will be going sideways. And some companies need to right size. They took on too much debt. They're luxury sellers. They're not selling. There's lots of reasons you're going to see companies shed headcount. And I think that headcount will unfortunately be unemployed for longer terms. Number 3, you are simply going to have less transactions in anything that is based on debt. Autos, furniture, appliance, housing, commercial, land, mobile homes, motorcycles, whatever it is. If you are in the business and you leverage debt as part of your sales vehicle, you are going to have less sales. Now, this should make sense, right? Less sales, higher cost of capital. It all plays out. So again, I expect if we are in a no landing scenario and rates on 30-year mortgages don't get below 6.25, housing is going to be stuck at 4 million, 4.1 million existing home sales. Nothing to write home about. In fact, you might even go below 4 million if rates don't come down appreciably from below 6.25. Next thing you're going to see, again, I think there's a lot of companies that are over levered, lots of debt, can't pay for it. I think you're going to see lots of consolidations. In a country that, or an economy that's not booming or collapsing, you're just going to have a slow churn of consolidation. Now, I think it will be obvious in the banking system. I don't think we are through the consolidation in the small, mid, and big banks. I do think we will still see, 100, 200 banks be gobbled up and, put out of their misery because their balance sheets are in tatters. Again, it is part of the process. I think as we go through this next 2 years and the cost of capital is higher, we will see more consolidations, more acquisitions, more takeouts. And then lastly, we're going to see more personal bankruptcies. I think we are going to see more individuals file personal bankruptcies in an environment with so much debt. If individuals unfortunately lose their job and they are stuck not finding another one or finding another one with like incomes, bankruptcies are going to go up in that environment. This is going to be a slow and painful kind of sideways economy. The folks that are employed will be doing okay. The folks that get let go, unfortunately, could see a series of dominoes go forward. So again, the other thing, I didn't even have this on the list, but we will give you a bonus number 6. And this really goes back to number 4, bank consolidations. I think you are going to see commercial real estate pain finally be recognized. I think we've gone through the extend and pretend. I think there's going to be a validation that rates aren't going to bail anybody out. Cap rates are going to go up because cost of capital. And you're going to just have more foreclosures, more forced sellers, more pain, and all of those things. So again, in a no landing scenario, it doesn't mean sunshine and rainbows. It actually means probably a lot of pain. In an environment that's addicted to low rates, rates in the mid 6s are painful. Rates in the mid 6s are painful. So again, I'm not necessarily, again, calling a no landing. I just think, again, after the surprise in retail sales this morning, after the surprise in weekly unemployment claims, we need to acknowledge that it's at least possible. Let me know in the comments below. What are some other things you think might happen if we have a no landing scenario? All right, folks, take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.